After 99 failed blind dates, my best friend Mia and I decided to give up on men and have children on our own. She chose sperm from a genius at MIT, and I picked a donor with European noble bloodlines. After the child was born, the donor was diagnosed as infertile and requested to marry to ensure an heir. She agreed. She didn't know my baby's father was a billionaire who'd soon take me to his private island, adorning me in jewels until I nearly sank. When I posted a yacht photo, her desperate texts poured in. His project got canceled. I can't afford baby formula. She begged for friendship, asked me to be godmother. Then she met me with a chainsaw, screaming, "Why should you have more? Just for picking a better donor?" I woke back at the fertility clinic. Decision day. Lana, what's so great about marriage anyway? Let's do this on our own. We can be the powerful heroines of our own lives. Mia shook my arm, her voice filled with a manic excitement. The sterile, familiar smell of the clinic hit me, and a wave of dizziness confirmed it. I was reborn. Mia's sharp voice grated in my ear. Lana, look. This one's from an MIT genius. The kid would be brilliant. You should choose this one. In that instant I knew. She was reborn too. And she was making a beeline for the billionaire's genes she thought would be her ticket to paradise. She put on a show of looking out for me. This MIT profile is a sheer thing, Lana. You'd be crazy to pass it up. It was the complete opposite of what she'd said in our last life. I looked at her, watching the predatory gleam in her eyes, and slowly nodded. The moment I agreed, her face lit up and she blurted out, "Don't you regret it?" She was so desperate for me to choose the brilliant Dr. Julian Vance because she wanted the billionaire for herself. She wanted the life of obscene wealth and power. I put on an innocent look and played the role of her naive friend. But Mia, the information you chose is too vague. Complex European ancestry. What if the genes aren't good? Mia had already signed the documents and interrupted me, her voice cold and hard. That's not your problem anymore. My son will become the heir to a dynasty. A cold smile touched my lips, one she couldn't see. A brilliant MIT scientist and a future genius son versus an abusive monster and his equally monstrous child. Only a fool wouldn't know who to choose. I wondered if Mia would still be smiling when she was locked in a cage with a lion. Because in my last life, I was indeed taken to a private palatial estate. But the man waiting for me was a brute. He threw me into a room and assaulted me. The slightest resistance was met with a rain of fists and kicks, leaving my body a canvas of bruises. The long, concealing robes worn by the women on the island hid the evidence from the outside world, but I couldn't even sit without wincing in pain. He had XYY syndrome, a genetic condition that made him prone to explosive, uncontrollable rage. The priceless, beautiful, and heavy ornaments that filled our rooms were often hurled at my head. I bled so much I often hovered on the edge of death, only to be brought back by their advanced medical team, trapped in a cycle of torture and recovery. He forced himself on me even when I was heavily pregnant. There was no one to turn to. Everyone on the island looked at me as if I were a slave. And the child? The aristocratic heir? I'd seen the prenatal report before I ever left the country. He didn't just have XYY syndrome. He had a rare mosaic variant. He was born to be a menace to society. They wouldn't let me terminate the pregnancy. The memory sent a shiver down my spine. The procedure confirmed for a few days later. Mia let out a sigh of relief. She caressed the signed consent form, her eyes gleaming with schadenfreude. An MIT genius just sounds good on paper. Watch out, Lana. You'll probably end up with a useless deadbeat, and your kid will be an idiot too. I remained placid in the face of her taunts, offering a serene smile. They say when you mix that many bloodlines, you're bound to get some mental instability. You be careful, Mia. My words hit their mark. Her face flushed with anger, and she stomped her foot, a trembling finger pointed at me. You just wait, we'll see whose kid has the garbage genes. 2 weeks after our procedures, just like in the last life, Julian Vance was diagnosed with infertility. He tracked me down using the clinic's records. He stood at my door dressed in a well-tailored suit, his brow sharp and intelligent, a pleasant, clean scent of cedarwood clinging to him. His voice was as clear and calming as a mountain spring. Ms. Lana? I was momentarily stunned, and in that brief silence, the tips of his ears turned a faint pink. He spoke again, a little flustered. This is going to sound incredibly sudden, but would you consider marrying me? He rushed to add, I wouldn't interfere with your life, of course. Okay, I said, cutting him off. I will. Do you want to go to the courthouse now? My straightforward acceptance seemed to shock him into silence. He just stared at me, completely at a loss. Just then, Mia's cackling laughter erupted from my phone. I'd been on a call with her. She knew Julian was coming today and couldn't wait to watch me walk into the same trap she'd fallen into last time. Ha ha, Alana, you're that desperate to get married? I guess with a face like yours, you have to take what you can get before it's too late. Her voice was shrill with mockery. When you two get married, I'll be sure to send you a huge gift. God knows you won't have many good days left to enjoy it. Hearing the cruel voice on the other end of the line, Julian frowned instinctively and murmured almost to himself, I won't let you suffer. Mia's voice cut him off, her words growing even more venomous. What kind of future can two broke losers have together? You probably won't even be able to feed the kid. You'll just fight all day and live on welfare. I ended the call and gave Julian a small, steady smile. I know we won't end up like that, I said, my voice firm with a certainty that surprised even me. Never. We picked a date, and, with our family's blessings, we were officially married. The wedding was set for 2 weeks later. Julian was with me for every step, choosing the dress, booking the venue, tasting the cakes. He never missed a thing. Looking at this kind, attentive man, I felt nothing but profound relief. A gentle, respectful husband was infinitely better than an abusive monster. Mia spent those 2 weeks bombarding me with texts, all mocking me for marrying a failure. But the poverty of her last life was her own doing. If that project had gone smoothly, Julian would have become one of the youngest and most respected experts in his field worldwide. His salary would have easily been in the 7 figures, but Mia's pathological possessiveness had destroyed his future. She stormed into his lab, caused scenes, and alienated all the senior researchers who had once championed him. Remembering this, I turned to Julian with a gentle smile. If you have project work to do, you know I can handle all of this on my own. A flicker of deep gratitude crossed his face. He suddenly dropped to one knee and pulled out a ring box. The diamond wasn't huge, but the stone was a stunning shade of sky blue, my favorite color. It was like a piece of a perfect cloudless day, something that made you happy just by looking at it. I know my proposal was abrupt, he said, his voice soft. So, I wanted to do this properly. He looked up at me, his eyes full of sincere emotion. Lana, will you marry me? I smiled and nodded, holding out my hand for him to slide the ring onto my finger. It couldn't compare to the gaudy boulder I'd worn on the island, but this small, perfect ring filled my heart with a warmth that spread through my entire body. So go ahead, Mia. Reject this kind of genuine, unconditional love. Go seek out your suffering. The memory of the chainsaw's teeth tearing through my flesh still felt lodged in my bones. Thinking of her twisted, furious face, all I could do was wish her luck. I hadn't even started sending out wedding invitations when Mia showed up at my door. I'm your best friend. Shouldn't I be the first one to get an invitation? She demanded. I want to see what your pathetic little wedding looks like. You probably won't get to see mine, but I can guarantee you it'll be 1,000 times better than yours. What future does a broke academic have? You're so short-sighted, Lana. You have a lifetime of misery ahead of you. I calmly handed her an invitation, my voice light and cheerful. I truly hope you enjoy your new life, Mia. After the proposal, Julian dove back into his work, and I focused on the wedding preparations. He was busy, but he texted me every day, letting me know what he was up to. He said the project was making huge progress and would be officially launching soon. Lana, thank you for being so understanding, he texted. I was worried you'd be angry that I can't be there more. Don't miss the actual wedding. I typed back, smiling. I took the initial project funding he'd received and invested it into a few different funds. On the day of the wedding, Mia showed up dressed more extravagantly than I, the bride. She wore a couture gown that shimmered like a fairy's wing, carried the latest designer handbag, and had a diamond tiara nestled in her hair. Anyone would have thought it was her coronation. She shoved past the ushers, her nose in the air. "Don't you dare touch me. My presence here is a gift. It elevates this whole shabby affair." Julian strode forward, his face grim, and signaled the security. "Please escort this person out. We only want guests here who genuinely wish my wife and me well." Mia's face went from smug to livid. The man who was her husband in another life was now yelling at her for another woman. The jealousy was a toxic, visible thing. "You think you've won the lottery? After all our years as friends, you think I don't know her?" She shrieked, pointing at me. "She's a social climber. She'll kiss up to you now, but the second you're a nobody again, she'll kick you to the curb and cheat on you without a second thought." Slap. The sound echoed in the quiet hall. I took a deep breath, looking at Mia's stunned, hand-printed cheek. "You are not my friend anymore," I said, my voice dangerously low. "No friend would say things like that, especially not on my wedding day. Take the bitterness you feel from going to your own appointments alone and aim it where it belongs. At the father of your aristocratic child." Stunned silent for a moment, she finally recovered, letting out a wild, hysterical laugh as she lunged at me. Julian immediately stepped in front of me, his body a shield, his eyes daring her to take another step. "You are not welcome at our wedding," he said, his voice cold as ice. Mia froze for a split second, as if she couldn't compute what she was seeing. Julian Vance, calm, composed, the man she had once believed she could claim through careful selection and manipulation, was standing in front of me like a wall. Not looking at her, not hesitating, just protecting me. Her lips curled into something between a laugh and a snarl. "You really think this changes anything?" she spat. "You think marrying him makes you safe? Lana, you're still the same naive." "Enough." Julian's voice cut through the hall again, lower this time, colder. Two security guards stepped forward. Mia struggled instantly, her couture gown twisting as she fought their grip. The contrast was almost absurd. Diamond tiara, perfect makeup, and pure rage splintering her face. "I belong here," she screamed. "I deserve to be here more than any of you. I chose better. I chose smarter. She stopped mid-sentence, eyes locking onto me. And for the first time, something flickered there that wasn't arrogance. Recognition. Like she was finally remembering the ending she had already lived once before. "You," her voice dropped. "You did something different this time." My expression didn't change, but I leaned slightly closer, just enough for only her to hear. "I stopped trusting you," I said softly. That was all it took. Her pupils trembled. "No," she whispered, suddenly frantic. "No, that's not how it goes. I picked correctly. I picked the billionaire path. The guards dragged her back toward the exit. Her composure shattered completely as she screamed, "Lana, you don't get to change the outcome. You don't get to win again." The doors shut. Silence returned to the hall like nothing had happened. For a moment, no one moved. Then Julian exhaled slowly and turned to me, his hand brushing mine. "You didn't deserve that," he said quietly. "I know," I replied. And for the first time, I meant it without any bitterness at all. The ceremony resumed. The music started again, slightly softer now, as if the world itself was trying to pretend it hadn't been interrupted by something broken. Mia was gone for 3 days. On the 4th, she sent a message. Not to me. To Julian. "She's going to ruin you. I saw it before. I was trying to save you." Julian read it once, then deleted it without replying, and blocked the number. That night, he came home earlier than usual. He didn't bring documents or talk about work. Instead, he stood in the kitchen watching me for a long time, like he was still trying to understand something he couldn't quite name. "What is it?" I asked. He hesitated, then said, "I've been thinking about what she said at the wedding." I paused. His gaze sharpened slightly, not on me, but on the memory of her. "She said you would abandon me if I failed," he continued. That you would leave if I stopped being useful. The silence stretched. Then he walked closer. I don't believe her, he said. But I also don't want to leave any room for that kind of future. He placed a folder on the counter. Inside were documents, bank transfers, patent filings, project approvals. And my name, quietly added as co-owner on several accounts I hadn't even known existed. My breath caught slightly. You didn't need to do that, I said. I know, he replied. I wanted to. Then, after a pause. I think I understand now. What you meant when you accepted me so quickly. He looked at me directly. You weren't choosing me like a gamble, he said. You were choosing survival. For a moment, I didn't answer. Because he was right. And because in the last life, survival had been the only thing I never had. I stepped closer, resting my hand over his. No, I said quietly. This time, I chose something better than survival. His brow furrowed slightly. What? I smiled. Peace. Outside, the night was still. But somewhere far away, I knew Mia was still awake too, trapped in the version of fate she thought she had mastered, realizing too late that some paths don't lead to crowns. They lead to cages. And this time, I wasn't in one. The wedding fallout didn't destroy our lives. It did something worse. It made Mia quiet. No more chaotic texts. No more live stream insults. No dramatic entrances. Just silence. At first, I thought she'd finally snapped out of it. Julian even said cautiously, maybe she's moving on. But I didn't believe in moving on anymore. Not with Mia. 3 weeks later, we found out why. Julian's project wasn't just cancelled. It had been acquired. Not by a rival lab. By a private foundation with no public board, no public records, and funding that didn't trace back to anything normal. And the chairperson listed on the acquisition paperwork was Mia L. Carrington. My stomach dropped. That's impossible, I said immediately. She didn't have money like that. Julian didn't answer right away. He just kept reading. Then quietly said she didn't. Not in this timeline. That was the first time I understood something was wrong in a way I couldn't rationalize. The next time I saw her, it wasn't dramatic. It was worse. She invited me to lunch. A normal restaurant. Public place. Bright windows. People laughing. She looked completely stable. Elegant. Controlled. Expensively dressed in a way that didn't scream attention anymore. No desperation. No jealousy. Just certainty. Sit, she said pleasantly. I didn't. Julian stayed behind me. Mia smiled like that was expected. You're scared of me, she said. Good. That means you still understand consequences. I finally spoke. What do you want? She tilted her head. Do you remember, she said, how many times you changed your choice? My throat tightened. She continued calmly. I stopped trying to win against you, she said. I realized something simpler. Her eyes met mine. You can't beat a person who is willing to ruin the system you rely on. Julian's hand shifted slightly behind me. Mia noticed instantly. Oh, she said lightly. He doesn't know yet. A pause. Then she leaned forward just a fraction. So, I'll explain. Over the next 10 minutes, she laid it out like a business presentation. Not time travel. Not reincarnation. Worse. She had taken control of the data layer behind everything Julian touched, funding algorithms, publication indexing, hiring pipelines, donor registries. Every system that decides who becomes visible and who disappears. I can make your husband a genius, she said to me calmly. Or, I can make him irrelevant. Julian's expression tightened. That's illegal. Mia laughed softly. So was ruining someone's life with a few clicks, she replied. But here we are. She looked back at me. I don't want your love story, she said. I want your option set removed. That was the moment I realized this wasn't jealousy anymore. It was control. Not over me. Over outcomes. Julian stood up. This ends now, he said. Mia didn't even flinch. She simply slid a folder across the table. Inside, screenshots of my financial accounts freezing. My legal identity flagged. Our marriage contract marked, pending invalidation. And one last page. A list titled Approved Life Paths. Lana. Only 2 options were highlighted. Both empty. She looked up at me gently. You don't get to choose better anymore, she said. You only get to choose what I leave you. For the first time, Julian looked unsure, not of her sanity, but of the scale. Because this wasn't revenge. It was infrastructure. I finally spoke, my voice steady in a way I didn't expect. You think this makes you win? Mia leaned back. I already won, she said. I just came to tidy up the ending. I picked up the folder, slowly, then set it on fire in the ashtray in front of her. The restaurant gasped. Mia didn't move. She just watched it burn, then smiled. That's fine, she said softly. I expected you to resist the script. She stood up, adjusted her coat, and before leaving, she said something almost gentle. I didn't destroy your life, Lana. A pause. I removed your ability to pretend you were ever safe in it. And then she walked out. That night, Julian got a message. Not from Mia. From his funding board. We regret to inform you your position has been reassigned. Then another. All associated work will continue under new leadership. The new leadership name. Mia L. Carrington. Julian looked at me across the room. She's not just targeting us, he said quietly. She's taking everything I would have built. I nodded slowly, because I finally understood the truth of this version of Mia. She didn't want the billionaire life anymore. She didn't want marriage. She didn't even want victory. She wanted something far more efficient. A world where I could still exist, but only as someone who had already lost. And for the first time since I was reborn, I realized this wasn't a love triangle anymore. It was a system war. And she had already gone national.